The sun was already high in the sky when Miguel Rivera woke up to the familiar sound of his mom rushing around their small apartment. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at the old clock on his bedside table, 7:30 a.m. His mom had already been up for 2 hours, getting ready for her first job of the day. "Miguel, breakfast is on the table. Don't be late for school," she called out, her voice tired but warm. Their apartment wasn't much, just 2 small bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living room with furniture they'd found secondhand. But his mom, Elena, always kept it spotlessly clean. Pictures of Miguel's father hung on the walls, smiling down at them from happier times. Miguel quickly got dressed in his worn but clean school clothes and made his way to the kitchen. A simple breakfast of eggs and toast waited for him. His mom was already by the door, tying her hair back and checking her purse for her bus pass. "I left some money for your lunch on the counter," Elena said, pulling on her jacket. "And don't forget, Mrs. Lopez needs someone to help clean her yard after school. She said she'd pay you $15. Miguel nodded, his mouth full of toast. Money had been tight since his dad passed away 3 years ago. The cancer took him quickly, leaving Elena to raise their son alone. She now worked as a housekeeper at a hotel in the mornings and as a dishwasher at a restaurant in the evenings. "I won't forget," Miguel promised. "And I'll start dinner before you get home." Elena smiled, the corner of her eyes crinkling with pride despite the dark circles underneath them. She crossed the room and kissed the top of his head. "You're too grown up for 12, she said softly. "Your father would be so proud of the young man you're becoming." After she left, Miguel finished his breakfast, washed his plate, and packed his school bag. Their neighborhood wasn't the nicest in Los Angeles. Graffiti marked some walls, and several stores had closed down in recent years, but it was home. Everyone knew everyone else, and they looked out for each other. At school, Miguel excelled in most subjects, especially math and science. His teachers often told Elena that her son had potential for a scholarship someday if he kept up his grades. This always made Miguel work harder. He dreamed of going to college and getting a good job so his mom wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. "Hey Miguel, want to come over and play video games after school?" his friend Thomas asked as they walked out of their last class. Miguel shook his head. "Can't. I've got to help Mrs. Lopez with her yard, then start dinner before Mom gets home." Thomas sighed but understood. Unlike most of their classmates, Miguel had responsibilities. That afternoon, Miguel raked leaves and cleared weeds from Mrs. Lopez's small yard. She was an older lady who lived alone and had trouble with physical work. When he finished, she handed him the promised $15 and an extra container of homemade soup. "For you and your mother," she said kindly. "You're a good boy, Miguel." On his way home, Miguel stopped at the small grocery store on the corner. He carefully counted out money for rice, beans, and some vegetables for dinner. The cashier, Mr. Patel, threw in a slightly bruised apple for free. "Study hard," Mr. Patel said with a nod. It was what he always told Miguel. Back at the apartment, Miguel started the rice cooker and began chopping vegetables. While he worked, he thought about the bills he'd seen his mother crying over last night. The rent was due next week, and she was still short by quite a bit. Miguel looked at the money Mrs. Lopez had given him and added it to the small jar where he kept all his earnings. It wasn't much, just over $60, but he'd give it all to his mom to help with the rent. He wished he could do more. Kids at school complained about not getting the latest phones or shoes, but Miguel would have given anything just to see the worry lines disappear from his mother's face. As he stirred the beans, Miguel glanced at his father's picture on the wall. "I'm trying, Dad," he whispered. "I'm trying to take care of Mom like you asked me to." Outside, the neighborhood was coming alive with people returning from work, children playing, and families gathering for dinner. Another day was ending, and Miguel knew tomorrow would bring the same challenges. But he also knew that he and his mom would face them together, just as they always had. Thursday afternoons were always busy at Rosita's restaurant. Miguel usually took a shortcut through the back parking lot on his way to the library after school. His mom wouldn't finish her dishwashing shift until 9 that night, and he planned to get his homework done before heading back to meet her. The spring air felt warm as Miguel walked between the rows of parked cars. Most belonged to the restaurant staff, older models with fading paint and the occasional dent. But today, there was something different in the lot. A shiny black SUV with tinted windows stood out among the other vehicles, its polished surface reflecting the afternoon sun. Must be someone important, Miguel thought as he walked past. That's when he noticed something on the ground near the SUV's driver's side door. At first, he thought it was just a piece of trash, but as he got closer, he realized it was a wallet. It wasn't just any wallet, this one looked expensive. The leather was thick and soft, unlike anything Miguel had ever touched before. He glanced around the parking lot. No one was watching. For a moment, he stood frozen, unsure what to do. "Hello," Miguel called out. "Did anyone lose a wallet?" His voice echoed slightly against the brick wall of the restaurant, but no one answered. The back door remained closed, muffling the kitchen sounds inside where his mother was working. Miguel carefully picked up the wallet. It was heavier than he expected. Opening it slowly, his eyes widened at what he saw inside. There were several credit cards in the front slots, all shiny and metallic looking. Behind them was a thick wad of cash, more money than Miguel had ever seen in one place. "Wow," he whispered, flipping through the bills. 20s, 50s, and even $100 bills. There had to be at least $1,000 there, maybe more. It was enough to pay their rent for months. His heart beat faster as he thought about what this could mean for his mom. No more late-night shifts, no more worrying about bills, maybe even a visit to the dentist for that tooth that had been bothering her. But then his father's voice seemed to whisper in his ear, "El dinero fácil tiene un precio difícil." Easy money comes with a difficult price. It was something his dad used to say. Miguel swallowed hard and continued looking through the wallet. Behind the money, he found a driver's license. The photo showed a familiar face, a muscular bald man with intense eyes. It took Miguel a second to place him, and then he gasped. Vin Diesel, he read aloud from the name on the license. Miguel recognized him immediately. He was the famous actor from those car racing movies his cousin loved so much. The ones Miguel wasn't allowed to watch yet because his mom said they had too much dangerous driving. His hands started trembling slightly. He was holding a movie star's wallet. A really famous movie star. And it had so much money in it. For a split second, a small voice in his head whispered how easy it would be to take just one of those $100 bills. Who would know? The actor probably had millions. He wouldn't miss one bill, and it would help his mom so much. Miguel quickly shut the wallet and shook his head, ashamed of the thought. His mother had always taught him that honesty wasn't something you practiced only when it was convenient. Your character is who you are when nobody's watching, she would say. He carefully tucked the wallet into his backpack and changed direction. The library would have to wait. He needed to find out where he could return this wallet. At the corner store, Miguel used the old computer they let customers use for job applications. He searched Vin Diesel movie filming Los Angeles and found several news articles about the actor's latest project. They were filming at Henderson Studios, about 5 miles away on the other side of town. Miguel checked his pocket. He had $3.50, enough for bus fare there and back if he didn't buy anything to eat. His stomach rumbled, reminding him he hadn't had anything since lunch at school. It doesn't matter, he told himself as he exited the store. This is someone else's money. I need to get it back to them. As he walked to the bus stop, the weight of the wallet felt heavy in his backpack, like it was testing him. But Miguel knew what he had to do. Tomorrow after school, he would find a way to return the wallet to its rightful owner, even if it meant missing out on Mrs. Garcia's yard work job and the $20 she'd promised to pay. That night, Miguel couldn't sleep. He'd hidden the wallet between his mattress and box spring, but it might as well have been under his pillow for how much it weighed on his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the thick stack of bills, $1,000, maybe more. The thought made his stomach twist into knots. When his alarm went off at 6:30 the next morning, Miguel had already been awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling. He got up quietly, trying not to wake his mom, who had come home exhausted just before midnight. In the kitchen, he found a note on the table. Miguel working double shift today. Won't be home until 10. Leftovers in fridge. Love you, Mom. Miguel sighed. More hours, more work. His mom was killing herself to keep them afloat, and here he was with enough money in his room to solve their problems for months. He made himself a small breakfast and sat at the table, thinking. The rent was due in 3 days. His mom had been putting aside money little by little, but they were still short. Last month they'd been late, and the landlord had threatened to evict them if it happened again. Just one bill. A voice in his head whispered. Just $100 bill. He's rich. He wouldn't even notice. Miguel pushed his cereal bowl away, no longer hungry. He went to his room and pulled out the wallet again. The leather felt smooth in his hands. He opened it and stared at the cash. So easy to take, so simple. Next to the money was a small photo tucked into one of the wallet's pockets. Miguel carefully pulled it out. It showed Vin Diesel with a little girl on his shoulders, both of them laughing. The girl looked about 5 or 6 years old, with curly hair and her father's smile. On the back, someone had written Daddy and Hania, best day ever. Something shifted inside Miguel. This wasn't just a famous actor's wallet. This belonged to a real person, a father, someone with a family who mattered to him, just like Miguel's own dad had mattered to him. He remembered the day before his father died. Weak from cancer treatments, his dad had called Miguel to his bedside. "My son," he'd said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Being a man isn't about how much money you have. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Miguel carefully put the photo back and closed the wallet. His decision was made. At school that day, Miguel could barely focus. His math teacher, Mr. Chen, had to call his name twice during class. "Sorry, sir," Miguel mumbled, embarrassed. "Everything okay?" Mr. Chen asked after class. Miguel nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Just tired." "Well, wake up," Mr. Chen said with a small smile. "You're too smart to be daydreaming." As soon as the final bell rang, Miguel rushed out. He'd looked up the bus route to Henderson Studios during lunch. It would take 45 minutes and require changing buses once. He had just enough money for the fare. On the first bus, Miguel sat near the window, watching the neighborhoods change as they traveled. From his familiar streets with their small houses and apartment buildings to fancier areas with big homes and clean sidewalks. It was like crossing into another world. An older woman sat next to him, carrying grocery bags. "Where you headed all by yourself, young man?" she asked kindly. "Henderson Studios," Miguel replied. "I need to return something to someone who works there." The woman raised her eyebrows. "That's quite a trip for a boy your age." Miguel just nodded, not wanting to explain further. When he changed buses, he realized he was now in a part of town he'd never visited before. Tall buildings, expensive stores, and people in business suits. Nobody looked like they were struggling to pay rent here. On the second bus, Miguel rehearsed what he would say when he arrived at the studio. "Hello, I found Mr. Vin Diesel's wallet, and I'd like to return it." Simple and direct. But his stomach tightened with nerves. Would they even believe him? Would they think he'd stolen it? As the bus approached his stop, Miguel gripped the straps of his backpack tightly. He'd never done anything like this before. What if they called the police? What if they accused him of taking money from the wallet? "Stop it," he told himself firmly. "You're doing the right thing." The bus slowed, and Miguel stood up, steadying himself against the seat. Through the window, he could see the large sign for Henderson Studios. This was it. He took a deep breath and stepped off the bus, the weight of the wallet in his backpack feeling both lighter and heavier than before. He walked toward the studio entrance, his heart pounding in his chest, but his steps determined. Whatever happened next, he knew his father would be proud of him. Henderson Studios looked nothing like Miguel had imagined. Instead of a glamorous building with red carpets and spotlights, it was a collection of large warehouse-like structures surrounded by a tall fence. A security booth stood at the entrance, where a guard in a blue uniform watched everyone who approached. Miguel's steps slowed as he neared the gate. His mouth felt dry. He hadn't thought this far ahead. How exactly was he supposed to get in? The guard looked serious, arms crossed over his chest as he spoke into a walkie-talkie. Taking a deep breath, Miguel walked up to the booth. The guard looked down at him, eyebrows raised. "Can I help you, kid?" His voice wasn't mean, but it wasn't particularly friendly either. "I need to see Vin Diesel," Miguel said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I found his wallet." The guard's expression changed from bored to suspicious in an instant. "Right," he said slowly. "And I'm best friends with the president. Look, kid, we get fans trying to sneak in all the time. You need to go home." "No, really." Miguel unzipped his backpack and started to reach inside. The guard's hand shot up. "Whoa, whoa. Keep your hands where I can see them," he said sharply. Miguel froze. "I'm just getting the wallet," he explained. "To show you." The guard sighed. "Slowly then." Carefully, Miguel pulled out the leather wallet and held it up. "See? It has his driver's license and everything. I found it yesterday in the parking lot where my mom works." The guard still looked doubtful but reached for the wallet. Miguel handed it over, his heart pounding. What if the guard just took it and sent him away? The security guard opened the wallet and his eyes widened slightly as he looked through the contents. He glanced at Miguel, then back at the wallet. "Wait here," he said finally, stepping back into his booth. He made a phone call, speaking too quietly for Miguel to hear. Through the window, Miguel could see him gesturing with the wallet in his hand. After what felt like forever, the guard came back out. "What's your name, kid?" "Miguel Rivera." The guard nodded and spoke into his walkie-talkie again. A few minutes later, a woman with a clipboard and a headset appeared from inside the studio. She had a rushed look about her, like someone with too many things to do. "This is the boy?" she asked the guard, who nodded. She turned to Miguel. "I'm Anna, one of the production assistants. You say you found this wallet?" Miguel explained again about finding it in the restaurant parking lot. Anna listened, tapping her pen against her clipboard. "That makes sense," she said when he finished. "Mr. Diesel mentioned eating at a place called Rosita's yesterday. He realized his wallet was missing last night." She studied Miguel for a moment. "You know, there's over $2,000 in here." Miguel's eyes widened. $2,000? That was more than 2 months' rent. His mom wouldn't have to worry about bills for a long time with money like that. But he just nodded, trying not to think about it. "I didn't count it," he said honestly. "I just knew it was a lot." Anna's expression softened slightly. "Well, they're in the middle of shooting right now." "They can't be interrupted." But Mr. Diesel's assistant asked if you could wait. "Wait?" Miguel repeated. "For how long?" Anna checked her watch. "They should wrap this scene in about an hour. Is that okay? Can you hang around?" Miguel thought about his mom, working her double shift. She wouldn't be looking for him until much later. "Yes, I can wait." Anna nodded. "Good. Come with me." She led him through the gate, past the guard who gave him a small nod of respect. They walked across a large parking lot filled with trailers and equipment trucks. People hurried back and forth, carrying cables, lights, and all sorts of gear Miguel couldn't identify. "Stay here," Anna said, stopping at a row of chairs near a small tent with a table of snacks and drinks. "Help yourself to anything on the craft services table. Just don't wander around, okay? Security gets nervous about that." Miguel nodded, suddenly aware of how hungry he was. He hadn't eaten anything since his small breakfast that morning. After Anna left, he cautiously approached the table. There were sandwiches, fruits, chips, cookies, and drinks, more food than he'd ever seen laid out for people to just take. He picked up a sandwich and a bottle of water, then sat down in one of the chairs. As he ate, he watched the bustle of activity around him. In the distance, he could see bright lights set up around one of the buildings. That must be where they were filming. The sandwich was the best he'd ever tasted, or maybe he was just that hungry. Either way, as Miguel sat there waiting, he couldn't help but feel that he was getting a glimpse into another world. A world where people didn't worry about making rent or working double shifts. A world where food appeared on tables for anyone who wanted it. An hour, Anna had said. In just an hour, he would meet a real movie star. Miguel finished his sandwich and wiped his hands nervously on his jeans. He hoped he wouldn't say anything stupid when the time came. The hour stretched longer than Miguel expected. He watched people rushing back and forth, some talking into headsets, others carrying equipment. From where he sat, he could hear occasional shouts of "quiet on set," followed by long silences, then "cut," and the activity would start up again. After eating his sandwich, Miguel had taken a small notebook from his backpack and started on his math homework. Ms. Rodriguez would be disappointed if he didn't turn it in tomorrow, movie star or no movie star. Trying to solve for X? Miguel looked up, startled. A man with a friendly smile stood nearby, holding a coffee cup. He wore a baseball cap and a headset around his neck. "Yes, sir," Miguel replied, closing his notebook quickly. "Just some equations." The man nodded. I was never good at math. More of a hands-on guy myself. He gestured to the equipment around them. I'm Tony, one of the camera operators. Anna told me why you were here. Pretty honest thing you did, bringing back that wallet. Miguel shrugged, not sure what to say. It wasn't mine. Still, Tony said, not everyone would have done that. They're almost finished with the scene. Shouldn't be much longer now. As if on cue, Anna appeared, walking briskly toward them. Miguel? They're ready for you. Mr. Diesel is in his trailer. She turned to Tony. Can you take him? I need to deal with tomorrow's call sheet. Sure thing, Tony said. He motioned for Miguel to follow him. Come on, kid. They walked past more trailers and equipment trucks until they reached a large silver trailer with steps leading up to the door. A man in a black t-shirt stood outside, talking on a phone. He nodded at Tony and held up one finger in a wait a minute gesture. Miguel's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He was about to meet a real movie star. What would he say? What if Vin Diesel was angry about the wallet? What if he thought Miguel had stolen something from it? The man finished his call and opened the trailer door. He's ready, he said to Tony. You the wallet kid? He asked Miguel. Miguel nodded, not trusting his voice. Good job, buddy, the man said, patting Miguel's shoulder. Go on in. Miguel climbed the steps slowly, aware of his worn sneakers and faded jeans. As he reached the top step, he took a deep breath and walked through the open door. The inside of the trailer was nicer than any room Miguel had ever been in. There was a small kitchen area, a couch, and what looked like a makeup station with a big mirror. Sitting on the couch, looking at a script, was Vin Diesel himself. In person, he looked both more normal and more intimidating than on movie posters. He was wearing a simple black t-shirt and pants, but his arms were huge with muscles. When he looked up and saw Miguel, he set down his script. So you're the one who found my wallet, he said, his voice deep and exactly like in the movies. Miguel nodded, suddenly unable to speak. Vin Diesel smiled, the stern look on his face softening. Come in, have a seat, he said, gesturing to a chair across from him. What's your name? Miguel Rivera, Miguel managed to say, his voice coming out higher than normal. He sat down carefully on the edge of the chair. Well, Miguel Rivera, you saved me a lot of trouble, Diesel said. Canceling credit cards is a pain, but the real headache would have been replacing my license and other stuff. He leaned forward. Anna tells me you found it at a restaurant? Miguel nodded again, finding his voice. Yes, sir. In the parking lot of Rosita's, my mom works there as a dishwasher. I was cutting through on my way home. Diesel's eyes showed recognition. Good food there. Their enchiladas are amazing. He studied Miguel for a moment. Anna also tells me there was over $2,000 in that wallet. Miguel swallowed hard. I didn't count it, sir. You didn't take any of it. No, sir, Miguel said quickly. It wasn't mine. Diesel nodded slowly, still watching him. That's pretty impressive. Most people would have been tempted. Miguel thought about how he had been tempted, how he'd imagined what that money could do for his mom, but he didn't say anything about that. My dad always said that doing the right thing isn't about getting a reward, Miguel said instead. It's just about being the kind of person you want to be. Something changed in Diesel's expression. A look of surprise, maybe even respect. Your dad sounds like a wise man. I'd like to thank him too. Miguel looked down at his hands. He died 3 years ago. Cancer. There was a moment of silence. When Miguel looked up, Diesel's eyes had softened even more. I'm sorry to hear that, he said, and his voice sounded genuinely sad. It's hard losing someone you love. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own wallet, a new one, Miguel noticed. I want to reward you for your honesty. He started to pull out some bills, but Miguel surprised himself by speaking up. Sir, you don't have to give me anything. Diesel paused, looking at him curiously. No. Most kids would be jumping at the chance for some cash. Miguel thought about the rent that was due, about his mom working double shifts, about how much they could use the money. But something inside him couldn't take it. Not like this, not as a reward for doing what he knew was right. My mom would want me to say thank you, he said carefully. But she'd also want me to say that she raised me to return what isn't mine. So I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Diesel put the wallet down, a new expression crossing his face. He looked at Miguel with something that might have been admiration. Vin Diesel leaned back on the couch, studying Miguel with new interest. The trailer fell quiet except for the distant sounds of the film crew outside. Miguel shifted in his seat, wondering if he'd said something wrong by refusing the money. You know, Diesel finally said, in my movies I play all these tough guys who can fight anybody, drive anything, survive everything. He gestured to a poster on the wall showing him jumping from an exploding car. But real courage isn't about any of that stuff. Real courage is what you just did, standing up for what you believe in, even when it costs you something. Miguel didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. So if you won't take money, Diesel continued, there must be something else I can do to thank you. A signed poster. Set tour? Maybe a small part in the movie? His eyes lit up at this last suggestion. We've got a scene with some neighborhood kids coming up next week. The idea of being in a real movie made Miguel's heart race. His friends at school would never believe it. For a moment, he imagined himself on the big screen, maybe even with a line or two. But then he thought about his mom, working her fingers raw washing dishes, coming home too tired to even eat dinner sometimes. Sir, Miguel began hesitantly, I don't need to be in your movie. Diesel raised an eyebrow. No. Most kids would jump at the chance. Miguel took a deep breath. What he wanted to ask felt both simple and impossible. If you really want to do something, he started, then paused, gathering his courage. My mom works really hard. 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She's never even seen one of your movies in a real theater because we can't afford tickets and she's always working anyway. He looked down at his hands, then back up at Diesel. If you could maybe just call her and thank her for teaching me to be honest, it would mean a lot to her. She doesn't get thanked very much. Miguel watched as something shifted in Diesel's expression. The movie star's eyes seemed to soften, and he blinked rapidly a few times. You want me to call your mom? Diesel asked, his deep voice sounding slightly different than before. That's it? That's all you want? Miguel nodded. Yes, sir. She'd never believe I met you unless she heard it from you. And she's the one who taught me to return things that don't belong to me. She deserves the thanks, not me. Diesel stood up suddenly and walked to the window of the trailer, his back to Miguel. He stayed there for a moment, shoulders rising and falling with a deep breath. When he turned around, Miguel was surprised to see the actor's eyes looked shiny, like he was fighting back tears. What's your mom's name, Miguel? Diesel asked quietly. Elena Rivera, Miguel answered. She's working at the hotel today until 4, then at Rosita's until closing. Diesel nodded, then picked up his phone from the table. What's her number? Miguel recited his mom's cell phone number, which she always insisted he memorize in case of emergencies. Diesel typed it into his phone, then sat back down across from Miguel. You know, he said, his voice low and sincere. I lost my dad when I was younger too. Not as young as you, but young enough that it changed everything. He looked at the phone in his hand. He taught me a lot of the same things your dad taught you. About being a man of your word. About integrity. Miguel felt a lump in his throat. He rarely talked about his dad with anyone except his mom. It still hurt too much. Your mom did a good job with you, Miguel, Diesel continued. A really good job. He tapped his phone against his palm, thinking, I'm not just going to call her. Miguel's heart sank. Had he asked for too much after all? I'm going to do better than that, Diesel said, his face breaking into a smile. Tell me what time she gets off work tonight. 10 o'clock, Miguel answered, confused. But sometimes it's later if they're busy. Diesel nodded, making a note in his phone. Perfect. And where do you live? Miguel hesitated, not sure if he should give out their address. Seeing his uncertainty, Diesel added, You don't have to tell me exactly. Just the neighborhood. Parkside Heights, Miguel said. The apartment complex on Willow Street. Diesel typed something else into his phone, then looked up with a determined expression. Miguel, I want you to go home now and act completely normal. Don't tell your mom anything about finding my wallet or coming here today. Can you do that? Miguel nodded slowly, though he wasn't sure why he was being asked to keep this a secret. Yes, sir, but what about? Trust me, Diesel said, standing up and extending his hand to Miguel. I think you're going to like this better than a phone call. Miguel stood and shook the actor's hand, surprised by how normal it felt, despite belonging to a famous movie star. Tony will make sure you get home safe, Diesel added, walking Miguel to the door of the trailer. And Miguel? Thank you. You reminded me of something important today. As Miguel stepped out of the trailer, he wondered what exactly he had reminded Vin Diesel of, and what the actor was planning to do instead of a simple phone call to his mother. Miguel spent the rest of the day in a daze. Tony had called him a car service, his first time ever riding in one, and the driver had dropped him off a block from his apartment so none of the neighbors would see and ask questions. Now, sitting at the kitchen table with his homework spread out in front of him, Miguel found it hard to concentrate. Had today really happened? Had he actually met Vin Diesel? At 9:30 that night, Miguel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is your mom home yet? It had to be Vin Diesel. Miguel replied quickly, not yet. Usually home by 10:15. The reply came almost immediately. Perfect. Be ready. And remember, it's a surprise. Miguel's stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. He still had no idea what Diesel was planning. He tried to tidy up the small apartment, suddenly seeing it through the eyes of a movie star. The one couch with the faded blanket covering a tear in the cushion. The kitchen table with one slightly wobbly leg. The photos of his dad on the wall in frames from the dollar store. But there was no time to do much. At 10:12, his mom's key turned in the lock. She walked in looking exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her uniform smelling like restaurant food. Miguel, you're still up? She asked, setting down her purse and slipping off her shoes with a grateful sigh. It's a school night, Mio. I wanted to wait for you, Miguel said, trying to sound normal. How was work? His mom smiled tiredly. Same as always. Busy, my feet are killing me. She walked to the fridge and poured herself a glass of water. Did you eat dinner? There was leftover chicken in the fridge. Yes, I ate, Miguel assured her. Mom, why don't you sit down? I'll make you some tea. Elena looked at him curiously. Tea? Since when do you make tea? But she sank gratefully onto the couch, not questioning this small luxury. Did something happen at school today? Miguel busied himself with the kettle. No, school was fine. Just regular stuff. He was saved from further questions by a knock at the door. His mom looked up, confused. Who would that be at this hour? She wondered aloud, starting to stand up. I'll get it, Miguel said quickly, hurrying to the door. He took a deep breath and opened it. There stood Vin Diesel, holding a large gift basket in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other. Behind him, a man held what looked like a giant check, the kind they give to lottery winners. Is this the Rivera residence? Diesel asked loudly, winking at Miguel. Miguel nodded, stepping back to let them in. His mom was standing now, her mouth open in shock. Elena Rivera. Diesel continued, walking toward her with a warm smile. I'm Vin Diesel. Your son Miguel did something amazing today, and I wanted to thank you in person. Miguel's mom looked from Diesel to Miguel and back again, her tired face showing complete confusion. What? Miguel? Diesel set the gift basket down and handed her the flowers. Your son found my wallet yesterday. $2,000 in cash, credit cards, everything. And he went way out of his way to return it to me. Not many people would do that. Elena turned to Miguel, surprise and pride washing over her face. You found Vin Diesel's wallet? Why didn't you tell me? Miguel smiled shyly. It was supposed to be a surprise. Diesel gestured to the man with the check. Mrs. Rivera, I wanted to do something to show my appreciation. Your son wouldn't accept a reward. He said he was just doing what you taught him. That says a lot about how you raised him. The man turned the check around so they could see it. Elena gasped and put her hand to her mouth. It was made out for $25,000. I can't accept this, she whispered, overwhelmed. Please, Diesel said gently. Think of it as an investment in Miguel's future. College fund, maybe. Whatever you need. Tears filled Elena's eyes. She looked at Miguel, who was watching her anxiously. Did you know about this? She asked softly. Miguel shook his head. I just asked him to call you and say thank you. That's all, I promise. Diesel laughed. And that's exactly why I had to do more. When I offered him money, a part in my movie, anything he wanted, all he asked for was a thank you call to his mom. because he said you deserved the credit for teaching him to be honest. Now Elena was really crying, pulling Miguel into a tight hug. "Oh, Mijo," she whispered against his hair. "There's more," Diesel said, pulling out an envelope from his jacket. "2 VIP passes to the premiere of my new movie next month, car service included. And," he hesitated, looking around their small apartment, "I hope you don't mind, but I talked to your landlord on the way in. Your rent is paid up for the next year." Miguel felt his mom's arms tighten around him as she tried to process what was happening. This had to be a dream. "Why?" Elena finally managed to ask. "This is too much for just returning a wallet." Diesel's expression grew serious. "Mrs. Rivera, your son reminded me of something I'd forgotten in all the Hollywood craziness. About the values my own father taught me. About raising a child who does the right thing even when it's hard." He looked at Miguel with genuine respect. "You've done an incredible job with him. And sometimes good people deserve good things to happen to them." As his mom wiped away her tears, Miguel realized that his simple act of honesty had turned into something much bigger than he could have imagined. Not because of the money or the movie premiere, but because for the first time in years he could see real hope in his mother's eyes.